I am 84 years old, and I am sitting in the last chair I will probably ever buy. It is by a window that faces the garden. The roses are still there, a little wilder now than when I first put them in. I think I understand them better now than I did then. My body is honest with me about what is coming, even when I would prefer it wasn't. There is a slowness now that wasn't there before. The doctors speak to me in that careful, gentle way that means the years ahead are fewer than the years behind. I have made my peace with that. What I have not made my peace with is silence. The silence of knowing things that matter and keeping them to yourself because the moment never felt quite right, because you told yourself you would say it later when the words were better or the timing was cleaner. I am certain now. And later is not something I can count on anymore. So I want to talk to you about something nobody ever said to me directly. Not my mother, not my closest friends, not in all my 84 years on this earth. I want to talk to you about what we eat that is not food, the invisible diet, the beliefs we consume daily without examining them, the habits we swallow whole without tasting, the lies we feed ourselves so regularly that we have stopped being able to tell them apart from the truth. Because after 84 years, I can tell you this with complete certainty. Most of us are not tired from doing too much. We are tired from eating things that were never meant to nourish us. It is not age. It is the diet. You know that time is short. I know you know it. Someone said it at a funeral, and you nodded and felt it briefly in your chest, and then you went home and made dinner, and the feeling faded by morning. You know it, but knowing is not the same as feeling it. Knowing is what you do with your mind. You store it carefully somewhere in the back, behind the appointments and the errands and the small daily urgencies. You know it the way you know the sky is vast, comfortably, from a safe distance. Feeling it is different. Feeling it is what happens when the drawer will not close anymore, when you reach in and find not reassurance but arithmetic, the actual counting of what remains. I felt it for the first time at 63. I was sitting in my car in a grocery store parking lot on a Tuesday afternoon, engine off, not going in, not going home, just sitting there with my hands folded in my lap. I sat there for 40 minutes. And in those 40 minutes, something shifted in me that has never shifted back. I realized I had spent 63 years feeding myself things that looked like food but weren't, urgency that belonged to other people, approval I was never going to digest, a future self I kept promising myself I was almost finished building. I had been full my entire life, full of all the wrong things. And underneath all of it, there was a real hunger I had never once sat down to feed. I want to tell you about a woman named Frances. It was 1974. Frances was 36 years old. We worked together at the same company in a city that felt like it was always just about to become something extraordinary. Frances had a plan, written down in a small blue notebook she kept in her desk drawer. Work for 20 years. Save carefully, retire at 56, move to the coast of Ireland where her grandmother had been born. She had a photograph of the coastline pinned above her desk, gray-green water, white sky, a small stone house on a cliff. She showed me that photograph in 1974, and her face was the face of someone who already lived there in her heart. Frances worked the 20 years. She saved when others spent. She planned when others drifted. She was by every measure exactly on track. In 1991, Frances was 53 years old, 3 years away from the stone house on the cliff, and she was diagnosed with a progressive illness that would take her mobility within 5 years. She never moved to Ireland. She never stood on that cliff. I visited Frances in 2003. She was sitting in a chair not unlike this one by a window not unlike this one. And I asked her if she had any regrets. She was quiet for a long time. Then she said, "I regret every year I looked at that photograph and thought not yet. I treated my own life like a reward I hadn't quite earned yet, like something I would be allowed to have once I had finished everything else first." She looked at me with eyes tired in a way that had nothing to do with illness. She said, "The coast was always there. We were always here. The only thing that was never guaranteed was the time between us." Frances left that company in 1994 because she had to. Within 6 months, her name was gone from the door. Her projects were reassigned. The meetings she had run for 15 years ran without her. The way rivers run when a stone is lifted from the bed, the water simply moves around the absence and continues. I watched it happen to Frances. Then I watched it happen to others. Then I watched it happen to me. When I stopped working, the phone calls slowed within weeks. The lunches stopped. The invitations thinned. The world reorganized itself without me the way worlds always do. The building kept its lights on without me. Someone younger sat in my chair and eventually stopped thinking about the person who had sat there before. This is not a tragedy. It becomes one only when you have organized your entire life around something that was always temporary and always impersonal. When you chose the career over the dinner, the deadline over the conversation, the recognition over the relationship. I hope what you chose instead was worth it. I hope you were present enough to receive it. I want to tell you about possessions. I have helped clear houses after owners have died. I have watched what happens to a life when it is sorted into boxes, everything carefully chosen, everything saved for and polished and loved and argued over. All of it ends up in piles on a Saturday afternoon. Some things go to family, some to charity, some to a landfill, the entire material record of a human life, one weekend. I think of the way we accumulate things like a woman filling a table with food for a dinner party that never happens, plate after plate, everything arranged beautifully, and then the guests never arrive and it all has to be cleared away. That is what materialism looks like from this window. A table set for a party that nobody came to, because we were so busy setting the table that we forgot to actually invite the people. The people were always the dinner party. And no piece of furniture or jewelry was ever going to sit with you at the end of a hard day and make you feel less alone. I gave 31 years of my life to my work. The work gave me things in return: structure, income, purpose. I am not saying it was wrong. I am saying I worshiped it. There is a difference between working and worshiping. Working means you give your professional hours to your professional life and protect everything else with equal seriousness. Worshiping means the work becomes the measure of your worth and everything else gets evaluated by what it costs your productivity. I worshiped. And what I sacrificed were the ordinary years, the Tuesday evenings, the Sunday mornings, the unremarkable stretches of time I was always going to be more present for once things settled down. Things did not settle down. Work does not settle down. It expands to fill whatever space you give it. It will take everything you offer and ask for slightly more. I had a colleague named Ruth who retired after 40 years in her field. At her retirement gathering, she stopped mid-speech and said quietly, almost to herself, "I just realized I cannot remember a single Tuesday evening from the last 20 years. The room was very still. She said, "I remember the projects, the outcomes, but the evenings, the actual living, I cannot find them." Everyone in that room who was still working felt something shift uncomfortably in their chest, because they knew exactly what she meant. Let me tell you what I actually remember. Not the achievements, not the recognition. I remember a morning in early spring when my daughter was 7 years old, and we sat on the back step together eating toast before school. She told me very seriously about a dream where all the clouds were made of library books, and I had nowhere to be for 20 minutes. I was just there, fully there. I remember that morning more clearly than any professional accomplishment from any year of my working life. I remember a phone call with my oldest friend that lasted 3 hours. We were in our 50s, both tired and slightly lost, and we said the real things that night, what we were afraid of, what we regretted, what we still hoped for. That phone call held me together for months. in ways I never told her. I should have told her. I remember a simple meal at an ordinary kitchen table. Nothing special was happening. Someone said something that made everyone laugh in that helpless, uncontrolled way you cannot manufacture. And I looked around that table and felt something so complete and sufficient that I have spent 20 years trying to find the word for it. I have not found the word, but I know it was the closest I ever came to understanding what a life is actually for. These are the things that fed me. I want to give you something before I finish. Not advice. I am too old for advice. Just what I know to be true from inside 84 years. Stop feeding yourself the story that the real part is coming. It is already here. Francis knew this and could not act on it in time. The Tuesday evening is the real part. The ordinary morning is the real part. Those days are not the corridor. They are the room. Live in the room. Stop swallowing your grief whole. The losses you moved through quickly because life demanded it. Come back to them now, not to suffer, to finish. Grief properly felt becomes something you can carry lightly. Grief swallowed whole becomes weight you cannot explain and cannot put down. Stop keeping silence around the people you love most. Say the real things in the ordinary moments. The kitchen table on a Tuesday is the occasion. The Sunday phone call is the occasion. Do not save the real things for a better moment. The moment is now. It has always been now. And stop eating at the wrong table. Push away the one set with other people's urgency and other people's definitions of a life well lived. Find the table set with quiet mornings and honest conversations and small pleasures taken without apology, and the company of people who know you properly and choose you anyway. That is the table. It was always the table. The light is changing in the garden now. It moves across the roses every evening in a way that makes them look lit from inside. I have watched it for 20 years and it still stops me. I am going to sit here a little longer and watch it. Life is not a story with a moral at the end. It is more like a garden. Things grow and change and die and come back different. You tend it as best you can. You notice what is blooming. You sit with what is finished, the hunger you feel, that quiet, persistent hunger for something more real than what you have been eating. That is not a problem. That is the most honest thing about you. Feed it. While the light is still in the garden, while the people you love are still close enough to hear you, while there is still time to sit down to the real meal. It will not wait forever. Nothing does. But today it is still here, and so are you.